this is where we live at now. All right, where do we want to start, in the back or front? Where did we start last time? In the front, didn't we? All right, who have that Roman mic? All right, let's start all the way back in the back, Dr. Brown. And thank God for you that are here. We got a lot of folks on vacation, and then we missed last week because of 4th of July, and we gave them that week off, and now we got to start all over again. So, oh yeah, I want to go to third church on Thursday night. Yeah, they're having church. I wonder if they're having church tonight. All right, starting there at verse 1 through 10 and chapter 13.
Chapter 13, starting at verse 1. What chapter we starting at, Pastor?
Huh?
What chapter we starting?
Chapter 13. Did we do that last week? Okay, well, let's look at chapter 14. I'm sorry, that's good. Chapter 14. Yeah, purification of a leopard. All right, go ahead. Chapter 14.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leopard in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of a leprosy be healed in the leopard, then shall the priest command to take for him, that is to be cleansed, 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in the earthen vessel over the running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it, and the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them and the living bird and the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, wash himself in water, that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave all his hair off his head, and his beard and eyebrows, even all his hair he shall shave off, and he shall wash his clothes also. He shall wash his flesh in the water, and he shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take the 2 he-lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and the 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering, mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil.
All right, praise the Lord. Now, all of these things was done because the priest was the one that had to announce that a person had leprosy, and the person couldn't come back into the camp until the priest would make sure that the leprosy was gone. Now, leprosy was a small reddish spot in the skin. Now, it will develop to a smooth, thin scale of whitish color. After it would turn that color in a few days, it would fall off and leaving the skin beneath red and uneven in the process. And sometime it would cover the whole body, but most of the time it only affected the elbow and the knees. So it worked on the joints. It would cause the skin to thicken about 1 inch. It would cause the joints to hurt, whether they could not walk, they had pains in their legs. It was in some cases crippled the people, but in some it causes death. And it was contagious, and it had to live out of the camp. They had to live out of the camp. They had to be quarantined, and they had to cry unclean if they was being approached. Leprosy comes from the word scale. And so can you imagine having a sore that, first of all, it is red, then it's turned white, and then it becomes a callus, where that if, and basically it's in your joints, whenever you move your joints, your elbow and your knee, you're hurting. And sometimes it would break out all over them. And then they had to have that stigma of if they saw a person coming close to them, they had to holler out, "I am a leopard. Please go back." Now, that was really, a council person doesn't have to holler that. Sometimes if you're in the public and you got a mask on, people know you got a cold or flu or something, but they're not that scared to be around you. But this is the stigma beside the pain that a leopard had. And it was all predicated on the priest. So the priest then was not only the go-between for God, the priest was the doctor. They had to offer the medicine, make decision whether this person could stay in the camp. They would send them out for 7 days. If they thought it was, they would come back. If it was still there, they would send them out another 7 days. So that's 14 days. And those 7 is the number of completion. So if it was still there after the 14th day, they would say, "You are a leopard." If it was gone, then they would declare that they was free. But you notice in Deacon Clark reading the first 10 verses, all they had to do. Now, God made it where that if a person was poor, now we're right now, if you look at this, and this lesson is coming, is coming in the right time, because right now it is the poor that is suffering for medicine.
Yes, yes.
It is the poor. They made it where the rich could get it. But the poor people, there's people that if you needed a hip replacement, break your arm or pull it out of place and you don't have no Medicare. And even if you have Medicare, they'll set you back. They'll set you back for months or so, and you're in pain. If you're rich and you got one of the plans, you're going right in, they're going to take care of you. Some of the doctors want to help you, but they're under the system. They can't. They can't. And so this is what what the law did. The law says, all right, if you cannot offer up a bullock, if you can't offer a cow, you can offer a ewe lamb. The word ewe is a baby sheep. It's a female. Or you can offer a lamb. And if you don't have that, you can offer a bird, 2 sparrows. Kill one and then take the other one and put his blood on it and wash it and send him out to camp. Because if blood, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. And all of these was typos that God set to make sure that we did not say, "I didn't have a way out. I didn't have the money. I could not get no help." Well, God gave them a way of help. All right, so let's look at then and the next verse 11 through verse 20. Who's reading?
And the priest that maketh him clean shall present the man that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord, at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall take one he lamb, and offer him for a trespass offering, and the log of oil, and wave them from a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall slay the lamb in the place where he shall kill the sin offering and the burnt offering in the holy place, For as the sin offering is the priest's, so is the trespass offering. It is most holy. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering, and the priest shall put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall take some of the log of oil, and pour it onto the palm of his own left hand. And the priest shall dip his right finger in the oil that is in his left hand, and shall sprinkle of the oil with his finger 7 times before the Lord. And the rest of the oil that is in his hand shall the priest put upon the tip of the right ear, and he that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, upon the the great toe of his right foot upon the blood of the trespass offering. And the remnant of the oil that is in the priest's hand he shall pour unto the head of him that is to be cleansed, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord. And the priest shall offer the sin offering and make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed from his uncleanliness. And afterward he shall kill the burnt offering. The priest shall offer the burnt offering and the meat offering upon the altar, and the priest shall make an atonement for him, and he shall be clean.
All right, now that was the ritual. But who remember in Exodus the anointing of the right ear, the right thumb, and the big right toe? What was the purpose of that? Y'all remember we went through that?
I remember it, but no.
Okay, you remember it? Tell it.
I don't remember. It was on the priest.
Okay, it's the same thing, the same ordinance that the priests had to go through. That's the same ordinance that he was doing for the leopard. All right, remember, the right ear was for them to hear the word of God.
Yeah.
Right thumb was for service. And the right toe was that where he leads me, that's where I will go. So they did that same anointing on the leopards, because the leopard had to be careful where they would go. They just couldn't walk all through the tent, even though to all across the place, even though they was healed. Then remember the difference in a burnt offering and a meat offering. What was the difference?
Meat offering was not actually meat. It was the vegetables.
Flour.
Flour. Yeah.
So the meat offering was flour and burnt offering was meat. And remember that for sin offering, they had to use a male.
Yeah.
Remember they specified that it was a male lamb? So they had to use a male for if it's a sin offering, for trespass. But they could use a female for some of the other offerings. And remember in all sin offering, the sin offering, when they used them, they didn't take and burn up all of the meat. There was a portion of the meat was a wave offering, and that was for the priest. Now, in some of the burnt offering, they had to burn it all up, even outside the camp, because for the burnt offering was for sin, and sin couldn't stay in the camp. And so all of these things was a type of Christ. Can you imagine now how blessed we are that we don't have to go through all of that?
Thank you,
All we have to do is confess our sin to Jesus, and he is ready, just like that, they're gone. They're gone. But they had to do all of these rituals, and this is just for leprosy. All right, read the next verses. Verse 21 through 30.
And if he be poor and cannot get so much, then he shall take one lamb for a trespass offering to be waved, to make an atonement for him, and 1/10 deal of fine flour mingled with oil for a meat offering, and a log of oil, and 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get. And the one shall be a sin offering, and the other shall a burnt offering. And he shall bring them on the 8th day for his cleansing unto the priest, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation before the Lord. And the priest shall take the lamb of the trespass offering and the log of oil, and the priest shall wave them for a wave offering before the Lord. And he shall kill the lamb of the trespass offering, and the priest shall take some of the blood of the trespass offering and put it upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot. And the priest shall pour of the oil into the palm of his own left hand, and the priest shall sprinkle with his right finger some of the oil that is in the left hand 7 times before the Lord. And the priest shall put of the oil that is in the hand upon the tip of the right ear of him that is to be cleansed, and upon the thumb of his right hand, and upon the great toe of his right foot, upon the place of the blood of the trespass offering. And the rest of the offering that is in the priest's hand he shall put upon the head of him that is to be cleansed, to make an atonement for him before the Lord. And he shall offer the one of the turtle doves or of the young pigeons, such as he can get.
All right. Now, remember I told you all that Leviticus was the less read book in the Bible? Why do you think it is the less read book in the Bible?
Because we probably feel that this doesn't apply since the New Testament.
Okay, some people don't think it apply for the New Testament. What else? It's what?
They don't perform these rituals anymore.
Okay, all the rituals, that's in there. All right, anybody else? Why would this book be the less read book in the Bible?
It seems like it doesn't have anything, it's not relevant.
Like I said, it's not relevant. All right. Watch this. What we fail to do in the church, and I do it, all of us do it, is that we tell people to do something or make an assignment, and we assume they know how to do it. And we don't give them step by step to do it. Leviticus is detail. Detail. Over and over detail so that you could get it. And people don't like details. You don't want folks to tell you, said, look, you take this door off, you got to take the hinges off first, you got to lay these screws this way. You mad. I know how to lay them screws there. You don't have to tell me how to do it. But that's what Leviticus is. It is detail. And how many of you, if you just aren't, you've been to a job or you was in the church, but you didn't want the people to tell you everything, how to do it. You wanted to put your own self. I got enough sense. I know how to do it. So that's why the people don't want to read Leviticus. It's detail. They had never did this before. They had never did it before. They had never seen it done before. And so they had to be stripped. It was stripped all the way. And they have to, if they didn't learn it in Leviticus, they failed in Numbers. They failed in Deuteronomy. That's why they had to tell it all over again in Deuteronomy, because they didn't get it. And then the reason why some of them didn't get it, they died. All of those, there was over 20 died. So them young folks done growed up. And so when these young people are coming along, that's why we got to preach the gospel don't change. These young folks are coming along, and that what we got preached, we got to start preaching that back up. They don't know it. They know more about all these little games and stuff like that and playing. They don't know about God. You don't love Jesus? So, do you understand it now? So that's why people don't want to read it. They say he's just saying the same thing over. They want you to understand the purpose so you would get it, because if you don't, you're going to see what happened in Numbers. When we get the Numbers. So you go over it, all right? Verse 31 through 40.
Even such as he is able to get, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering, with the meat offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him that is to be cleansed before the Lord. This is the law of him in whom is the plague of leprosy, whose hand is not able to get that which pertaineth to his cleansing. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When ye be come into the land of Canaan, which I give to you for a possession, and I put the plague of leprosy in a house of the land of your possession, and he that owneth the house shall come and tell the priest, saying, It seemeth to me that there is, and as it were, a plague in the house. Then the priest shall command that they empty the house before the priests go into it to see the plague, that all that is in the house be not made unclean. And afterward the priest shall go in to see the house, and he shall look on the plague, and behold, If the plague be in the walls of the house with hollow strakes, greenish or reddish, which in sight are lower than the wall, then the priest shall go out of the house to the door of the house and shut up the house 7 days. And the priest shall come again the seventh day and shall look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the walls of the house, then the priest shall command that they take away the stones in which the plague is, and they shall cast them into an unclean place without the city.
All right, now how would you like to be the priest? They being exposed to everything. They being exposed to everything. They got to go in and check out this, and they got to bring the leprosy before them, and they got to look at the things, see the scabbing and all of this, but God protected them. He protected them. You don't read in Leviticus where there was no priest that ever got leprosy.
So it wasn't contagious, right?
It was contagious, yes it was. But that was their job. They were the one that had to pronounce that a person had it or when they was cleansed. And this was in a house. If a leprosy had lived in that house, the plague was in the house. That's why we get a home, we ought to have something about the preacher to come in and bless it.
Yes, yes, yes.
And it's not just in blessing a home, it's not just going in there and standing in the living room and praying. No, you got to go in every room and symbolically every entryway. And now we know the devil can come in through people, but through every entryway, anoint it. The windows, the doors, anoint all of them. Those passages, even in the house. Now, this is a form of symbolic of casting the devil out the whole house. The whole house. You're anointing it. So the entryways, and you pray and command the devil to get out. Command spirits. You see, may not believe it, may not, but there are spirits in homes. People have been killed. When I had our professional janitorial business, and we had that for 20-something years, I only took one job at that. And that a person got killed and blood was splattered all over the wall. And they called us in to clean that house. And I was cleaning that house, and I could feel what went on. I said, I ain't taking another job like this. But there's people that specialize in that. They pay good money. You want that job, that's good money. They pay really good money. You charge $1,000 to go in and clean up, or maybe $2,000 to clean up behind them. But it wasn't for me. They could have gave me $5,000. I wasn't going back no more. That was it. No, it wasn't like it was just, you know how something just eerie? It's just like, you hear this music. So I didn't take none of those jobs no more. So this is what the priest had to do. All right, who want to finish?
And he shall cause the house to be scraped within round about, and they shall pour out the dust that they scrape off within the city into an unclean place. And they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones. And he shall take other mortar and shall plaster the house. And if the plague come again and break out in the house after that he had taken away the stones, and after he had scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look, and behold, if the plague be spread in the house, is a fretting leprosy in the house, it is unclean. And he shall break down the house, the stones of it, the timber thereof, and all the mortar of the house, and he shall carry them forth out of the city into an unclean place. Moreover, he that goeth into the house, and all the while that it is shut up, shall be unclean until the even. And he that lieth in the house shall wash his clothes, and he that eateth in the house shall wash his clothes. And if the priest shall come in and look upon it, and behold, the plague had not spread in the house, after the house was plastered, then the priest shall pronounce the house clean, because the plague is healed. And he shall take it, cleanse the house, 2 birds, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop, And he shall kill the one of the birds and the earthen vessel over running water.
All right, go ahead and finish it.
Finish off. Oh. And he shall take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the scarlet and the living bird and dip them in the blood of the slain bird and in the running water and sprinkle the house 7 times. And he shall cleanse the house with the blood of the bird and with the running water and with the living bird and with the cedar wood and with the hyssop and with the scarlet. But he shall let go the living bird out of the city into the open fields and make an atonement for the house, and it shall be clean. This is the law for all manner of plague and leprosy and scald, and for the leprosy of the garment and of the house, and for a raisin and for scab and for a bright spot, to teach when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the law of leprosy.
All right, so God gave them the complete law for leprosy. All the things they had to do to be clean, to get rid of it. And the priest, and that's why the man of God and woman of God that have to do all of these things, that some people don't see, they see the outside, but they don't know the inner thing. Do you think that the priest was concerned when they had to walk in them houses like that? And yes. Because they would see the evidence that a leprosy had been there, the scars, the blood, and some of the things. Because they lay down and what they had to, the napkins and so forth, the clothing. That's why they had to wash everything. And so they go into a house and they see signs that a leprosy had stayed there. And so they had to go in, the priest had to go in, and the Lord was giving them all the detail, just what to do, what to look for, everything. Because they didn't have no books to read. They didn't have no books to read. This was the foundation. And so they were thorough in what they had to learn it, and God gave them how to do it. Gave them how to do it. That's why if the Bible tells us to study to show ourselves approved unto God, studying is not just reading. Studying requires your mind to be open. And you don't read through it. You read what it says and extrapolate what it says out of it. You don't read what you think in it. That's called eisegesis. Exegesis is taking out what it says. And basically, 90% of the people that reads the Bible, eisegesis, they pull out what they think it says. They do not want to take the time to study and understand what it says. And so how many people have you ever talked to about the Bible and they said, that ain't the way I see it. I don't see it that way. Okay? It doesn't matter how you see it. If you extrapolate out what it says, just do it. Live it. Understand. They didn't have catharsis. They didn't have dictionaries. They didn't have nothing to look up, nothing. All they had was God's word. Now we have all of these things, and so we ought to get it right. We ought to get it right. If it takes you a day to read 5 verses in understanding, out of all you're getting, get an understanding. You can say, if you understood 5 verses a day, you learned 5 verses and understood them a day, that means that you learned 30 verses in a week. Take you about 3 or 4 years then to understand the Bible, and then when you get through reading the whole Bible and understand it, you've been forgotten 99% of it. You got to go back and do it again. I mean, is that true? I'm a teacher. Dr. Brown's a teacher. My wife a teacher, etc. And there's Dina and other the teachers. Just because we're the teachers and we read the book, we don't. Every time we get ready to teach this, we got to go back and guess what happened? We find stuff in the second reading that we didn't see in the first one. Found stuff in the third reading. I've been teaching the Pentateuch and church history. I've been teaching church history since 1995. And I still find stuff now that I missed. The more you read something, the more you pull out of it. But you cannot sit down and read and get everything out of the first time. You're just skimming over it. All right, chapter 15. I think we got time to get it. Chapter 15, unclean discharge from the body.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When any man hath a running issue out his flesh, because of his issue he is unclean.
All right, let me stop and say this right here. Men's, we have issues. All right, go ahead. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
And this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue or his flesh be stopped from his issue. It is his uncleanness. Every bed whereon he lieth that hath the issue is unclean, and everything whereon he sitteth shall be unclean. And whosoever toucheth his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. The even. And he that sitteth on anything wherein he sat, that he hath issue, shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And he that toucheth the flesh of him that hath the issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And if he that hath the issue spit upon him, that is clean, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even. And what saddle soever he rideth upon that hath the issue shall be unclean. And whatsoever toucheth anything that was under him shall be unclean until the even, and he that beareth any of those things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the even.
All right, now this is the law for uncleansing for men. Who can tell me what causes a man to have a to have an issue that's unclean? Brother, y'all want to tell me about what issues y'all?
That's a sexual cleanliness that they have in their flesh.
Y'all agree with that, brothers? Speak for yourself.
The book says gonorrhea.
Yeah, I believe that's what she's talking about.
The Bible says that they says gonorrhea.
Well, do y'all see now why the people want to read Leviticus? It's too detailed. It tells it like it is. Huh? Well, they could be, unclean issue is always something coming out of the body that is deteriorated or foul. A foul. And so, first of all, let's start with the man. Because men don't think they have issues. All right, tell it like it is. Verse 11 through 20. 11 through 20.
And whomsoever he toucheth that hath the issue, and hath not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And the vessel of earth that he toucheth, which hath the issue, shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when he that hath an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes, and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves, or 2 young pigeons, and come before the Lord unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement for him before the Lord for his issue. And if any man's seed of copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water, and be unclean until the even. And every garment and every skin whereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water, and be unclean until the even. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water, and be unclean until the even. And if a woman have an issue, and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days, and whosoever toucheth her shall be unclean until the even. And everything that she lieth upon in her separation shall be unclean. Everything also that she sitteth upon shall be unclean.
All right. Now, we understand that they didn't have all the things that we have now. They was in the wilderness. So they couldn't go to the drugstore. Okay.
It get wild in the wilderness.
And God had to teach them about sanitation. Sanitizing. I said sanitation. But that had to be all taught. Because this was things that they did not, in the wilderness, they didn't have all these things. They when in Egypt, they probably could go someplace and get it. But now they're in the wilderness. And God had to teach them that. All right? These women with issues now. Verse 21, read.
And whosoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. And whosoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the evening. And if it be on her bed, or anything whereon she sitteth, when he toucheth it, he shall be unclean until the even. And if a man lie with her at all, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon she lieth shall be unclean. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth, all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean as the uncleanliness of her separation. And whatsoever toucheth those things shall be unclean, and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons, and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering. And the priest shall make an atonement
for her before the Lord of the issue of her uncleanness.
Now, go ahead and finish it.
Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from the uncleanliness, that they die not in their uncleanliness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and of him whose seed goeth from him, and is defiled therewith, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that hath an issue, of the man and of the woman, and of him that lieth with her that is unclean.
So now, what we could learn from this is that in the wilderness in Egypt, sexual transmitted diseases was then. We learned in Genesis where that alternative lifestyle came from. It started actually with Cain. So all of these things that we hear now, they didn't just start here. This has been a long time. But God offered the remedy to save his people. They just had to follow the rules. Now, here's the other thing. It sounds like it was just a little easy thing. But they didn't go and get in a river and wash, because they couldn't do that, because they couldn't, the women and men couldn't be seen naked. They had to draw the water out. They had to make a fire and boil the water to purify the garments. That was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. But they had to do it. They had to catch the birds. Then on the 8th day, they had to take it into the priest. So now somebody would have got tired out there running birds.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Who's gonna catch and kill all them birds?
So it was a job. They got plenty of exercise without going to the gym. They ate good food without refrigerators. They made their own food they prepared it. The priest was taken care of. Clothes was clean. A whole lifestyle was developed in the wilderness. And sometime I would recommend that if you have young boys and girls and you get they put them into a good Boy Scout or Girl Scout, whether they go and learn how to become self-existent. Because if something happened, these cement-raised kids that never, saw anything in the wild. Now all our kids except Sharon and Jackie, I think, all our boys was in Boy Scout, wasn't it? They went through it. They went patting and went out into the wood, and they would go out there and stay 2 or 3 days. And they would teach them how to eat. They would eat snakes and some of everything. Survived. I was glad I didn't go out, because I'd have had a problem eating snake and knowing it. But if you get hungry enough, if you get hungry enough, I'm told that you'll eat. See, most of us have never been really hungry. We think hungry is going without food for a day. But let 5 or 6 days roll around. Yes. Those children in the cave, they ate what they could eat, but they're alive and they're rescued. I was praying for them, my God, when I prayed for those. I know the world prayed for those kids. That was a miracle. God brought them all out, all out. Yes. And one died, but he was a hero. I know he was a SEAL, but he was a hero. He died trying to save them. He under the water. His oxygen ran out. But what we have to do and understand that all of this was in the wilderness. It was in Leviticus. It teaches us detail. So it tells us that we should learn the lesson is that don't just tell folks something and think they know it. Now, it works, the pendulum swing both ways. There's some people don't want you to tell them nothing. And other people say, well, they didn't tell me how to do it. And they was criticizing me. If anybody ever been criticized, they didn't tell you what to do? That made you upset too, didn't it? And then there's some people tell you, you don't have to tell me everything. I know what to do. And then you find out they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. And so we have to be able to bear and take things, follow instructions. If you don't follow instruction, you think you know it, you can get in a lot of trouble. I've told this so many times. The biggest trouble I got, and I never did it again. When my children were small, I went to Treasure. You know that was a long time ago. Anybody remember Treasure store? That was a long time ago. And I got a tricycle. And the guy said, I'll charge you $5 to put it together. Man, I ain't going to pay you no $5. I'm looking at the box. I put this tricycle together myself. I went home. And I opened up the box, and it didn't look nothing like what was on the box. It was just nuts and bolts and pieces and bars and everything laying over there. I said, no, this ain't. So I started picking up Dr. Brown bars and everything. I put that tricycle together. I said, that thing ain't gonna work. It was wobbling. It wasn't steady. It didn't really even look like the tricycle on the box. So the next day, I took it apart. I walked back in the store. You know how you have your little ego. So I decided I'll let you do this for this $5. For the $5, you know, you go ahead and put. The man was laughing. He know that I didn't know I didn't know how to put that together. And so he put it together. So when you don't know, just let somebody that know do it. It may cost you more, but it'll be running right. And even you read the direction, and sometimes, how many of y'all read the direction and still didn't do it? It just didn't fit. So I know a little bit about them old cars, and I can't do nothing with them new ones. But I didn't like to do it because my knuckle was always be stretched up and all that. So I just let somebody stretch their knuckle up they're going to get paid. I ain't going to get paid. I'm on here trying to put something in there, hard spark plugged, and tune it up with the little thing. You know, they got the little thing, put it this gap or set it to that, and then fire come out and you burnt and all that stuff. No, anybody ever put spark plugs in? Do you get fire from spark plugs? They will burn you up. You get a spark or knock your hand off it because it's electrical. So I retired from mechanic, plumbing, plumbing in the house. Call a plumber. I don't like to paint. None of that stuff. Cause ain't no sense me putting on a painter uniform and that's all I look like a painter and I'm not. Cause I'm gonna have more paint on me than on the wall. So I don't paint. Now somebody said that's lazy. No, that's not laziness. I am a great husband. Is that true, Betty? I don't do no outside. I don't even want to water no flowers. I cook. I wash dishes. I'll take the trash out. I'm a good cook when I cook. But I don't want to be washing down the yard. I don't want to be wetting the flowers. None of that stuff. I just not me. I am who I am. And I got 53 years in to prove it. So don't try to do, and this is what Leviticus was doing. Don't try to do what you can't do. Find somebody to do it. And so follow direction. Look at somebody and say, follow direction. Yes. Okay, she have a question. Why was what?
Why would they wait until the evening before they was?
Because they said don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So they had to be, in other words, don't let the whole night spend where you got all of this disease or you're spreading disease or there's issues. Clean it up before the sun go down because they didn't have lights, electrical light. And they could infest a lot of things at night. So don't let it go down. Any other questions? Yes.
They, over and over, it was saying for them to bathe themselves, and they specifically said water. Why did he have to tell them water? What were they going to use?
I don't know, but that's what I'm trying to tell you, how detailed it was. He said water.
Yeah, but what were they going to use?
See, that's what I'm saying. We assumed that they would know that. But in Leviticus, the beginning, they told them everything over and over. All right, let me say this. How many of us that have children have to tell them some of the same thing over and over again? You done told them, and they said they know it. Yeah, I know. Don't you give me some credit? I know. They go back and do the same thing. Dr. Hart, give her the mic. Who got the mic? This Roman mic. There, the mic. All right, Dr. Harden.
I believe it was, they had to tell them that because some people do a dry run. They just, everybody don't like to, I'm learning everybody don't like to take baths and wash themselves. I'm lately finding out people get under the water. or just let the water run and they standing outside.
Now that ain't me. She ain't talking about me. That is not me.
But seriously, they had, because some people just do a sponge, what they call a sponge bath. He wasn't telling them they need to get in the water. They need to bathe, getting in a bathtub or a tub or something. But because that's why they had what they call the round thing in the laver. Mm-hmm. The laver is like a big tub.
Yeah.
And to cleanse themselves, they had to get in that. They had to put their feet in the laver, and they had to wash themselves. That's how the priest did. That's how everyone that came. So they had to say, God made it plain. He made it plain. So everything coming out, it don't leave no doubt whether, like some people right now, they sprinkle rather than to baptize.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's water, but they just sprinkle in the water. They really not submerging in the water. So what Leviticus is doing, as Pastor said, making it clear and saying it over and over again, like, even with us, if you say one thing and he said, well, it didn't say that I had to bathe, So he have to keep on saying it. Yeah, bathe this too, with water, because if you skip over something, that gives me an out. I could say, you know what? Yeah. So he making sure that we follow everything as designed and not skip over anything. And the other point that I want to make is about the issue. Do most of you know that the issue that they got, like gonorrhea and syphilis, came from them having sex with animals and then transferring it, then having sex with a human, and then that would seem like one of the curses that God put on them for doing something like that. So it was either cattle or sheep, and the sheep has a flow like a woman, so they would get syphilis from the sheep, and then if they had intercourse with a man or a woman, then that's going to transfer to that human, and that human is going to have that run on them. That's how it gotten. So if somebody has a issue coming from, and it could be a rectal, oral, or vagina.
And think
penis.
now the most dangerous one now is AIDS.
Same thing.
But it doesn't stop the people from doing what they're doing. They don't think it's going to happen to them. All right, any other questions? Yes.
About the birds, turtle doves and stuff like that. They had cages, you know, they would raise them from babies and put them in cages, just like they did with pigeons. You know, a lot of people that on pigeons, they put them in cages and train them.
That could be a problem. Maybe they went and bought the birds too. Somebody from people that was, you know, from people that was their living, trading birds. But they still had, they didn't get by. They had to get the birds. They had to follow the whole thing in order to be set free. And that's what we now let's get this, and this is going to be the end. How many today to find out that the biggest problem with the whole world is that we do not want to follow rules. We're always trying to take a shortcut, or bypass something, or say it doesn't refer to me. You know, you think about that all the people that get killed from drunk driving, people still every day, drunk drivers, texting while they're driving.